Welcome back to the whole podcast, Casey. I'm your host, Kirby Huff. And today we have an outside guest with us, and it's Martha Kehr with Audio Reader. I will let you go ahead and do a quick introduction and kind of describe a little bit of what you do for Audio Reader.
Great. Hi, I'm Martha Kehr, and I am the Communications and Listener Outreach Coordinator. And so I do a lot of the marketing products, and I also outreach to listeners and do lots of tabling at different events.
Okay, wonderful. For those listeners who aren't familiar with Audio Reader, can you give a little bit of a description of what you all do?
Yeah, so our primary mission is to foster independence by providing access to information and the arts for people who have difficulty reading standard print. So that could be for lots of different reasons, either a visual disability, mobility issues, or dyslexia. So any condition that would make it hard for you to read print.
Do you have listeners like all across the states, or are they all local listeners?
So primarily our news is covering Kansas and Western Missouri, but we do have listeners all over the United States. I'm not sure internationally yet, but we're sending our program guide to California, Texas, Minnesota. I know we have readers down on the East Coast, so it is pretty national.
Okay, wonderful. And how long have you guys been around?
We will celebrate 53 years in October.
Wonderful. Because I can remember hearing about you, when we had audio books
Yeah,
back in the day.
yeah. So it's been around. It has made a lot of changes over the years, but
Yes.
at the beginning, it was primarily just the radio reading service. So
Right, right. Okay. And then so what are some of your like core services within Audio Reader?
yeah, so again, we started with the radio reading. So that is just reading local materials. So printed materials like newspapers, magazines, grocery store ads are a big one. I said magazines, special programming, entertainment. And then beyond reading the printed material, we also do things like audio description. So we go out to local theaters and events and do audio description. So we're adding context to anyone who has a visual disability and can't maybe see what's going on stage. So we're describing scene changes, costumes, and making theater more accessible on some special events like Shakespeare in the Park. We've also been out to events like Free State Festival in Lawrence and the Busker Fest and interviewing artists and people on the street. And we were just at the Beat Baseball World Series, so we're doing a show about that. So audio describing, and then we also do special requests as well. So if
Okay.
anyone has some printed material they can't get access to audio otherwise, we will do that as well.
Wonderful. So you guys just cover all of the reading, all the audio services.
Yeah, yeah. All about
Yeah,
making
which
things
is
accessible.
right. Yeah. So it's been, I've in the past not ever gone to a lot of performing art shows just because it's like I can't tell what's going on. And sometimes by listening, you can't always tell what's happening. So I really enjoy the audio description along with shows, just make it accessible and better understanding of what's going on. Can you describe how the audio service works for users?
Yeah, so most of our shows are pre-recorded, so the volunteers do the recording, we edit it, and we put it on our program. And so if you are still a radio listener, which we do still have the radios, they're closed circuit, um, you just turn the radio on and you tune right into the broadcast. So we have 24 hours of news and information. There's always something to listen to. It's always read by a volunteer. So that's the way it kind of works. And then we do have a couple live shows. We read the Kansas City Star live every morning, the Topeka Capital Journal as well, and so that's in our breakfast table time show. But then we also archive everything. So all of the shows are archived for up to a year, so people can tune in through the website, through the Alexa skill, and just listen on demand. So all that content is put out there, and people can listen at their convenience.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then we also have a telephone reader service where they can just call in, and if they don't have Wi-Fi, perhaps, that's a great option because you can listen straight to the show, the article you want, fast forward, skip.
That's amazing. You got all the bases covered.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, there's still quite a few pockets of no Wi-Fi. It's hard to get good internet in rural areas, so it's great to have those telephone options.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved with Audio Reader?
Yeah, so I actually started as a volunteer. I kind of have a unique path. I was looking for something to do to volunteer when my older child left the house and I had a little bit more time. And I wanted something that was pretty easy to do and didn't require too much time because I was working full time. and I heard about Audio Reader, and I remember just reading to my kids at night and thinking it was a lot of fun, so I auditioned to be a volunteer, and I was able to make it in, and then I did that for about 5.5 years as a volunteer.
Wow.
So I read Missouri NewsHour, I read Soap Opera Digest, which was super fun,
I bet.
and then grocery store ads. A little less fun, but very important to read, and people really need that information. And then I saw the full-time position open up, and I was just looking for something different to do, and I really had already fallen in love with the organization, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I decided to apply for that, and I made it, so
Wonderful.
I
Wow.
became a staff
Awesome.
member in March of 2023, so
Wonderful. That's exciting. So, what does your day to day look like?
So it varies a lot, and on day when I'm in the office, I get in, check my emails, make sure the broadcast is working, and then a lot of the times I'm on the road though, so I go to lots of resource events, senior resource events, area aging agency events, anything that I think a listener might be there. So I do travel on the road, go out to Wichita, Columbia, Springfield, go to all sorts of annual events, smaller events. I love to go to low vision support groups. I've been out to the Whole Person a couple of times for different groups,
Yeah.
um, Alpha Point in Kansas City. So really trying to connect with organizations and get around the states.
Wonderful. So I know we've kind of discussed going from tape to, online listening, but what technologies do you use and how has that changed over the years?
Yeah. So again, it started with the closed circuit radios, which are really wonderful if you're in the broadcast area. So that's the kind of trick it's been. So we've worked with a lot of the local NPR stations. They let us be on their subcarrier, and so then we're able to tune the radios to that. So that's kind of how it was, most of the time, and those still are still available, and they're helpful to people, again, who don't have reliable internet. It's very technology easy. You just turn it on. So it's easier for people who are maybe aging and aren't familiar with technology or don't have a smartphone.
Sure.
Um, but then over the years, we've expanded. The Lions Club really helped support us moving into the telephone reader service. So we call it the Lions Telephone Reader Service. And that was quite a technology leap for us because it archived the programs. So we went from pretty much just putting it on the broadcast only to being able to make it on demand. And then now it's really expanding with the Alexa skill. That's our biggest growing way of listening. It's really easy to enable it. You just say, Alexa, enable the audio reader skill. And then again, it's great because you can go right to the live program. So it's pretty easy for someone who just wants to tune in and follow the schedule. But then again, it has all those programs archived. And then we're looking into the future to see other ways, like a dedicated app. We are on some accessibility apps like Zero. Um, I'm not sure which other ones, but moving into a dedicated app would be kind of something we're looking into
Sure.
to match the times and of course just being able to stream on our website is a huge benefit.
Absolutely. So I know we kind of touched base on this, but how do you ensure your services are accessible for all disabilities?
Yeah, so we really recently, I think just in the past 6 months, we released a new website that is much more accessible to visually impaired. So it's screen reader friendly. We've taken off all the images. There's no charts. There's no cookies. There's no breadcrumbs. So we've tried to make it so the screen readers aren't getting tripped up on
Sure.
all of those things. It's much more simple. It also has the high contrast options and the text
I
size
love that.
options. So yeah, so you can even change the kerning, so that way anyone with low vision could change the contrast to make it easier for them depending on what makes it easier for them to see.
Absolutely.
And then the Alexa skill has also been great for our more mobility challenged listeners. So if it's harder to hold the paper with the Alexa, you can just talk. You don't have to touch a device. You don't have to do that. So it's really
Right.
great for anyone who has a mobility issue.
Sure.
Yeah, so those are some of the bigger things
I
that we've
love
been
that.
doing.
I wish that all websites understood that for people with low vision, because I still go to websites and they'll have like a light blue font on a white background, and it's like, that is impossible to read.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
we're really trying to make sure our alt text is robust, and if there's any information in an image on our we do have a more sight visually impaired, not friendly website through the KU site, but on those, we just really work on the alt text
Sure.
Make sure anything we send out to our listeners, our volunteers, has robust alt text and any content from the image in the.
Right. Right. Awesome. All right. Well, we need to take a quick ad break and we will be right back with Martha.
Life can present challenges, but the whole person believes in turning challenges into triumphs. Our staff is trained to provide compassionate, personalized care that enhances the lives of our consumers, enabling them to live independently and with dignity. The whole person believes in the power of human connection. Our staff extends their reach into vibrant communities, fostering connections and creating moments of joy for every consumer we serve. Whether that's through peer support groups, adaptive sports, employment services, or non-emergency medical transportation, our staff provides exceptional care and become trusted companions and confidants. Your donation will help us continue to expand our programs and services to help people with disabilities remain independent and living in their home. Consider giving a gift today. Thank you.
Welcome back to the whole podcast, Casey, and our guest, Martha. Let's jump right back into it. So, how do you select the content that's available to your listeners?
Okay. It varies a little bit depending on what kind of show it is. For a newspaper, any local or regional newspaper, we're always going to read the front page articles, anything that's tagged as local, so it's not an Associated Press article. And we always make sure to get the obituaries as well. And then for magazines, we have some where we just read the magazine cover to cover, but then we also have some entertainment shows where our volunteers are sort of skilled, volunteers who've been around for a while, they get to curate the content. So we have some entertainment shows, um, like an adult hour in the evenings. We have outdoor shows. We have health and wellness shows. And so
Oh,
those volunteers are choosing from lots of different magazines and pulling content around a theme. So that's kind of an interesting one. And then we also read some things like National Enquirer. When it comes to grocery store ads, we on the telephone reader service, you can get the ad back to back, so the whole ad. But then we do have programs that are shorter that just kind of highlight the main sales going on that week. So shopping the discount shopping the discount stores. We read like Target, Walmart,
okay.
um, Dollar General, things like that. And then we just try to get the big sales, like buy one, get ones, anything that's a big deal. But then you can listen to that whole ad through telephone reader. And then books, the volunteers often choose the books for the mystery hour, the nonfiction hour. So it's books that they're interested in or books that listeners have requested in the past and then they put them into the show. So there's quite a few different ways. It kind of just depends on the show.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So, how far do you typically travel to provide audio reader services?
So luckily, we don't have to travel too far because we're able to record remotely in different places. Our primary focus is Kansas, all of Kansas, and Western Missouri. So we kind of go out to about Sedalia and all the way to the Colorado border. So as far as east west, and then we do tap into a little bit of Nebraska and northern Oklahoma as far as the content that we're reading. But we have a global reach, so people can listen to us online, so they can listen to us from anywhere. A lot of our content is pretty national, so like USA Today, TV Guide, things like that. So it'll kind of have a focus on the Midwest, but a national reach.
Okay. Can you share any upcoming projects that the network is working on?
Oh, yeah. So one thing that I haven't mentioned is one we do audio sales twice a year. So people donate used audio equipment to us, like speakers, turntables, CDs, lots of vinyl records, and then we sell that to the public at a really good price. So it's a really great fundraiser for Audio Reader, and it's a great way for the community to get a hold of rare records or a new turntable at
Yeah,
a
that's
really great
amazing.
price. So
I didn't know about that.
yeah, it's great. So our next sale is coming up in September 13th and 14th, and it'll be at the Lawrence local library. So it's a new partnership that we've just started a couple years ago. Our development team, like they have a lot of CDs they were trying to get a rid of, and we thought, well, you have bigger space than we do, so can we team up on this?
Yeah.
And they said yes, and it was a great draw. So it's good parking because it's right at the library. It helps them get rid of some of their CDs that they're taking out of cycle, and it's a great way for us to be out in the public so that the community can see us and what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if anyone needs some audio equipment, come over to Lawrence. We have a tab on our website that talks all about the audio sales. We try to do them at least twice a year, so January and September. And wow, we have so many records.
Oh,
A
that's
whole
wonderful.
storage room full of records.
That's
So
so
tons of
cool.
classical, just all sorts, and some 45s, but most of them are the full records.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing. So how do you measure the impact of the community?
So I think of that in two different ways. One is just how many different people are listening. So we know we have thousands of people coming to the website throughout the year. We have lots of people enabling the Alexa skill. So just knowing that there are people out there listening is one way. But a lot of it is just the individual impact it makes on just one person. Like how much people tell us that it makes them feel more independent and that they can get through their day and not rely on their family as much to get access to things. And so kind of measure it in just the numbers, but also just the quality of life improvement that can happen for even just one listener.
Awesome. Do you have any success stories or testimonials from users who have benefited from audio reader services?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some fun quotes here too, but one story that we published in our Airwaves magazine last fall was about a listener named Karen, and she's an interesting case because she does not have any visual disabilities, but she's dyslexic, and she was going back to school to finish her nursing degree and needed help with some of the textbooks that were not available in an audio format. And when she was really trying to retain that information for quizzes and tests and writing reports, it really helped her to hear it in an audio format while also reading it, and it really helped her get through her classes. And so she just talked about, she said she was really in a desperate place, and she found Audio Reader, and it just made her like she felt like she was passed up a lot in school because she didn't realize she had
Sure.
dyslexia, and they just thought maybe she just wasn't as smart as the other kids. So she said the text to speech was difficult to listen to, especially with the textbook. So the human voice was really what made the difference to helping her pass her classes. And it really also impacted the volunteer. Carl was our volunteer who did it, and it was a book called Psychopharmacology. So it was really difficult to learn to
Yeah.
pronounce all those words.
Oh, I bet.
But he said it was a really fun challenge for him, and he would happily do it again in a heartbeat because
Oh, I
he knew
love
how much
that.
it was, how much she appreciated it,
Yeah.
and he learned a lot about psychopharmacology
Sure,
along
I'm
the
sure
way.
he did.
And then some of the other quotes we have, people who say things like, "Audio reader is so essential. I just don't know what I would do without it." Um, Audio reader is the pillar for lives of our listeners. So I know that so many people rely on us so they can get that Kansas City Star every morning or whatever local paper it is, so they know they can feel connected and hear what's going on in their community and
Yeah.
their council meetings and all sorts of things.
Okay. Great. That's so awesome. So, how do you guys collaborate with other organizations to implement your services?
Yeah, so we're always looking for ways to collaborate. We work with a lot of senior centers, so we read their newsletters. We're getting into reading more like Meals on Wheels menus as well. So we're trying to help them with what they need, but also um, have them help us, tell people that we're available to their patrons. We are happy to work with any organization who serves the accessibility, community. Um, to spread the word about their events. So, we do our podcast as well that you have been on as a guest,
Yeah.
the Good Works in the Heartland. So we always want to share events from our fellow organizations so that our listeners know what's available to them and what's happening in the community. We do have some Kansas City specific content. So we have a stream that's just for the Kansas City area that our other listeners outside the area don't hear. And that's focused on Kansas City politics, Kansas City news. So we have a show called Community Hour on Tuesday afternoons where we're really trying to promote Kansas City news about print disabled community, sharing events that are happening, big events like sporting events, but also smaller events like the Miami County Parade and things that we think our listeners might want to go to.
Yeah. Wonderful. What challenges do you all have and how do you address those?
So some of the biggest challenges that we face, I would say, are getting our name out there, making sure people know we exist and that we're available, and the different ways that they can listen. And then radio signal is becoming a more challenge. We're finding that the NPR stations aren't putting as much um, infrastructure investment in their towers because a lot of them are moving to HD or looking into how they're going to expand to digital. And so we have some listeners who used to listen on the radio, but now their signal isn't as fresh. So we're trying to kind of retrain listeners to access it in different ways.
Sure.
And then technology is a challenge. So some of our older listeners who aren't familiar with using screen readers or other things, it's kind of training them on how to use the technology is a bit of a challenge. And then, of course, just the absence of Wi-Fi in certain pockets of Kansas and Missouri.
Right, right. In those rural areas.
Mhm. Yeah.
What are some of your future plans for Audio Reader?
Well, we really want to expand audio description and make sure that we're available in all the local theaters. One of our bigger goals for next year is to make sure we're at sporting events because we would love to be out at Royals games and Chiefs games describing for audience members who
That would
would
be
benefit from that.
amazing.
Yeah, so I think long ago we have done that, but it's something we really want to get back into because I think that would be great. And we're trying to learn a lot from St. Louis. They have one of our kind of sister stations. It's called Mind's Eye Radio in St. Louis, and they have really done a big expansion on audio description. And they're at all the Cardinals games, and so we're trying to use them as a model for what Kansas City can be. And then we also are looking for a dedicated app that would just be a great way for people to subscribe to individual shows. It would help us know which shows are getting the most listeners and also make it easier for our listeners to get straight to the show that they want. It'll kind of come up in their favorites. So that's something we're doing.
Okay.
And we're also seeing, we want to look into how we can support adaptive sports. We just went to the World Series of Beep Baseball, and it was so much fun. We would love to see Kansas City have a team and see how Audio Reader could help support just the sports and all the other fun activities that you're helping with in Midwest Adaptive Sports and all the other organizations.
Right. Wonderful. I love all these ideas. How could the community get more involved and support your center?
Well, one of the big things is just sharing the word about us, and trying it out. Give it a shot. It's you can listen. It doesn't cost anything, so it's a free service for anyone who needs us. So you can just go to the website audioreader.net, just listen live. You can kind of get an idea of what it is and see the shows we offer. If anyone's interested in volunteering, we're always looking for volunteers. And as we're expanding audio description, we're specifically looking for people who have a theater background and who are really interested in helping people engage with the arts. We're open to donations. Of course, we're a nonprofit and we are driven by our foundations and kind supporters. And then the last thing I would add is just as a listener, as someone who needs accessibility, advocate for yourself. If you have
Absolutely.
tickets to a show and you want audio description, ask the theater if it's available because the more demand that the theaters hear from patrons, the more they're going to reach out to us and look for ways to make it work. So everyone should always advocate for themselves,
Absolutely. I
and it
agree.
helps us.
And it's hard. Like I used to be very shy about it, but it's like, no, if you want to be able to have things accessible, then you have to advocate for yourself because nobody else is going to.
Yeah, and they are required to do it. We're about to celebrate the 34th anniversary of
Right.
the ADA,
ADA. Yeah.
and, that is something they're required to do, so, yeah, don't it's hard I know, I agree. It's hard to get over the shyness or,
The
to
older I get, the
bang a
easier
drum,
it
but
gets.
yeah. But, yeah, we did learn that the Fox Theater down in St. Louis did get sued, by the ADA because they were not accessible, so, um we would like to help Kansas City theaters prevent that,
Right. Right.
but also just make sure that they're partners with us in
Right.
making things accessible.
Right. So do volunteers need to be local to Lawrence or can anybody volunteer to read?
Anyone can volunteer if they are willing to record and learn how to use the program skills.
Okay.
So, in fact, during the pandemic, we had a woman from Virginia. She couldn't find anything to volunteer, and she was just, cabin fever like all of us. And she's like, "Can I volunteer for you guys remote?" And we're like, "Yes." We mailed her a microphone, and she now does our African American hour on Saturday.
I love that. That's
So,
great.
yeah, we do have and volunteers who have moved out of the city and they wanna keep doing it, or
Right.
they go on vacation, so sometimes you don't know. They could be
Right.
recorded in Hawaii,
Right.
or New Mexico, or
Sure. All right. Well, it's almost that's as much time as we have for today. Was there anything else that you wanted to add that we didn't talk about? We covered everything.
Yeah. Oh, I think we did. Unless I would just say that if you're in the Lawrence area, you're welcome to stop by Audio Reader and take a tour of our studios. We also have a lovely sensory garden out front that's
Yes.
accessible and it has, tactile plants and, olfactory plants. So it's a really fun place. And we're always happy to have visitors stop by and say hello and see Audio Reader for themselves.
All right.
And they can also
Wonderful.
look through records.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, thanks so much for being here with us today, Martha. We really appreciate your time and telling us about all these wonderful audio reader services.
Thank you, Kirby.
All right. Thanks so much for being here with us today. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. As far as our upcoming events, of course, we have our bowling third Wednesday of every month. We have Mind's Eye View for our low vision and blind group. Be sure to check our calendar on thewholeperson.org to get more information on these events. And then also on August 18th, we do have our pickleball and cornhole tournament coming up at Chicken and Pickle in Overland Park. We still have some room for some more teams. So hop on thewholeperson.org/big deal. Thanks again. See you next time.